Okay, so prior to the shift there, and in the process of the shift with the media, communications, and space operations, what you want to do is on the QSETI website, you want to ensure that all EMS and military on the planet are working with the same exact information, because this is planetary information, and are in communication with each other, and united with both telepathy and satellite communications. But what's going to happen, or from what I understand, would happen if you try to shift the power control there, they are going to attempt to cut power lines. They're going to cut power lines, cut communication lines, and if you're in communication with satellite and telepathy, then you're not going to be subject to that handicap. So you want to ensure that you're not subject to that handicap. So if they did cut communication lines or they did cut power lines, still all life on Earth would still be working with the same information, and it would be from satellites and from telepathy. So basically, because when you're dealing with someone who's highly telepathic, you could communicate with someone. If you're in America, you could communicate with someone in China telepathically, and no one's got to hear that. And then, you know, once you have all the saints and angels, they're going to be telepathic to that level. So it's not, you know, it's not a big deal. But you just want to make sure that you're working with that telepathic. You're working out of that telepathic hub to make sure you're getting the correct information. And then, once you have established that, and you establish that telepathic hub, and you're working with that information, then you want to simultaneously surround all the transmitters with covert military intelligence and force, and all at once upgrade the quality of the information for the human race to a four-dimensional level, by changing the rank structure of each organization or the corporate chain of command, whatever, you know, however it happens to be, and place saints at the top of the chain of command there. And, you know, in every corporation and every, you know, everywhere, saints and angels exist. And, you know, it's my recommendation that there's 7 billion people on the planet. All 7 billion people should become saints, and all that, you know, at a level 1, all it requires is clear, direct, honest communication. So just to establish who's willing to do that, and who's ever willing to do that, they would be in charge, and everyone would be following them. And actually, no one would be out of work with this. The only difference is that your supervisor would be somebody different. It would be somebody that you know you can trust, and you know is being completely honest with you. And as a matter of fact, when it comes to space operations and the media, ultimately it's going to be quadrupling the workforce there. So there's going to be a lot of jobs available there. So basically, that's what we want to do. And I can get much more in depth and in detail about any of this, but you know, this is a bit of a peculiar situation that I'm needing to use a GoPro to film this when there's a TV show going on me in another dimension. It's kind of a weird thing. But anyway, the YouTube for media is, you want to YouTube FCC votes to destroy internet freedom, InfoWars. And then you want to YouTube fake feminist attack Kirsten Dunst for pro-women beliefs, InfoWars. That's 2. And then the third one, our enemy operates right out in the open, InfoWars. And that gives basically, you know, that sums up exactly what's happening and the problems that need to be fixed. And once they're fixed, we're in a state of world peace, and that's it. We just have to unite, have the courage to work with the truth, and work with it. And like I said, media, communications, and space operations, that should be done first, because in the process of upgrading all the other industries, if the wrong people are in charge there, they can misinform everybody to mess everything up. So that's got to be done first. Okay. Now, we already learned a lot of stuff about the government in the part of the course, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify and sum up the work of Jordan Maxwell, and I'm going to describe the main things that's happening in the government that exists, and what's got to happen in the new government that it's upgraded to. The existing is basically a fascist structure, a pyramidal structure, and at secret levels, and even not so secret levels, they use black magic, where you're imposing your will on the reality, and that causes a negative karmic effect and ultimately the recycling of souls. So we want to replace that. They're using nationalism and separation with constant use of mottos, flags, slogans, symbols, songs, and various types of paraphernalia. Human rights go unrecognized by approving torture, execution, assassinations, and incarcerations. And it's just ridiculous what they're incarcerating people about these days. It's mind-blowing. They identify the enemies by stereotypical judgment of racial, ethnic, and religious or social, political beliefs and values. Rampant sexism by oppressing divorce, abortion, and natural sexual preference by placing the state as the ultimate guardian of the family. And that shouldn't be. The ultimate guardian of the family should be the family. And that's that. You know, the state shouldn't be, they're really overreaching their boundaries, what they're doing. The controlled content of the mass media by the government and corporations, and censorship rises in a time of war. And of course it's gonna, because there's no reason for the war. The war is mostly over natural resources, or population control. Corporations are often responsible for placing leaders in power. And the elections are actually fixed. People don't know that, but it's actually, well, a lot of people do know that. And that is actually provable. But the people that I would need to actually prove that and who have the information available are locked in prison right now. So that's, and that's basically what people are going to prison for. You wake up and spiritually develop, and they try to throw you in jail. Organized labor power is suppressed because it threatens a fascist agenda. And I'll be getting more into that, an experience I've had with that, with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers when I was in the process of bringing through free energy here. The promotion of open hostility to higher education, free expression, and intellectual arts, to the point where professors are censored, arrested, or openly attacked. And professors, professors should be running the college. They shouldn't be taking their cues from the Board of Education or a school or an entity that doesn't exist. If you're if you're working in a field where you're teaching people about whatever you're teaching them, then you should be the highest authority there. So basically, and then we're going to talk about that when we get into education, but hopefully the professors will want to become saints too, and just be honest with the students. Fascist regimes are governed by groups of friends appointing each other to government positions, enabling cronyism and corruption, leading to the use of government authority to protect each other from accountability. And that's another thing with the fascist government. No one's willing to take responsibility for their actions, and they have so many smoke screens in the middle. They hand a piece of paper to one guy, they hand it to another, hands it to another, hands it to another, and by the time it gets to the person whose job it is to act on the paperwork, well, it went through 50 people who are not willing to take responsibility for their actions. And then they tell you, you better do it or you get fired. And that's basically how they avoid responsibility and accountability. And what I'm suggesting is everybody just take responsibility for their actions, and if someone hands you a piece of paper that's obviously bullshit, you hand it back and say, I'm not doing it. You do it. And that's all. It's common to have natural resources appropriated or stolen by government leaders, and that's basically what most of the wars are about. Fraudulent elections manipulated by smear campaigns, assassinations, legislative control, political district boundaries, and media manipulation of information across the board. And the judicial system is used to manipulate or control the elections, which that's all part of the course too. We should already be aware of that. And I just pretty much summed up everything about how the government that is on this planet, how it works now. With the new government, with the sainthood, we'll be using white magic that's in complete harmony with the laws of nature and creation in the universe. There'll be open and public evidence presented of the fact that all is one, and that should already be done with the website on the doppelganger link. You know, and that's physical, perfect, easy evidence to understand. Human rights would be recognized and supported by all living saints, and that information and all life on Earth would be given the truth about all things on a planetary scale, and there would be, you know, the most honest people on the planet would be the ones in charge. It wouldn't be whoever's in charge, you don't even know who they are, because right now, whoever's in charge, they'll never identify themselves. It's all a big secret. But enemies would be identified as those who suppress the living, and that exists all over the planet. But you know, no longer will you be fighting a war in regards to a stereotypical judgment. You'll be actually using expanded consciousness and superpowers and identifying those who suppress the living, and you'll prevent them from doing that anymore. And it's a big promotion. That's a huge step up for most of the human race. But I believe that we can do it. There would be no judgment in regards to sexual preference. Sexual preference, that's something that people are born with, and it's you know, it's not for anybody to pass a law about. It's a natural thing, and the government right now doesn't. They either understand it and are intentionally hurting people, or they just don't get it. Either way, they shouldn't be in a position where people are even listening to them. The human race would be responsible for putting government leaders in power instead of corporations who will never identify themselves. So it would be, you know, it would be you doing it. And right now, they've created the illusion that you're doing it from the elections, but the elections are fixed, so that's not really what's going on. Organized labor power will be strengthened and supported by placing the most honest, intelligent, and courageous people in charge. So basically, organized labor power would be strengthened, well, to a telepathic level. Once you are put the leadership at a level of telepathic scrutiny, and you're willing to go there yourself, or if you're not willing to go there yourself, at least support the beings that are willing to do it. That'll put the most intelligent people in charge of whatever they're doing, in charge of what they're doing. Intellectual